Hello everyone. My name is Dr. Yasir bin Hassan, working as an assistant professor at the School of Management, BBD University. Subject which I will be covering is budgeting and management control. And topic which we will cover today is the use of budget for control, controllable cost, and the treatment of uncontrollable cost. So by now we all know that budget can be defined as a quantitative statement for a period of time um, which may include planned revenues, expenses, assets, liabilities, and cash flow. So basically, budget is balancing. It's a kind of balancing act between cash inflows and cash outflows, between income and expenses. Large corporation with sophisticated formal planning system use budget extensively for control. So basically, budget is used for a primarily for a control purpose. First for coordinating dispersed business unit and later for evaluating units performance. So budget and budgetary control helps first in formulating uh, plan, then actually evaluating those plan. The small company manager have less need to use a budget in this way since they control their business informally and personally. So if we talk about costs, so a cost is an expenditure required to produce or sell a product or get an get an asset ready for normal use. In other words, it's the amount paid to manufacture a product, purchase inventory, sell merchandise, or get equipment ready to use in a business process. So cost is something which is an amount which is incurred for the production purpose. Now, in a business, cost express the amount of money that is spent on production or creation of goods and services. So business में cost का मतलब होता है वो amount जो कि यूज हो रहा है, जो कि incur हो रहा है, जो कि spend हो रहा है in term of money for the production of goods and services or for the creation of good or services or for the improvisation of good and services as well. In accounting, the term cost refer to the monetary value of expenditure for services supply, raw material, labor, product, equipment, etc. So in accounting, cost is always referred in a monetary value. So if cost is not referred in a monetary value, then its treatment, its recording of those transaction will be impossible. So in accounting, cost refer to monetary value of all kind of expenditure which are done for services, supply for purchasing of raw material, labor, products, equipment, etc. So cost is an amount that is recorded in bookkeeping record as an expense. So in for from a bookkeeping point of view, it's recorded as a expense. So there are different types of cost. First type is fixed cost. As the name suggests, it is fixed over a period of time for a long, for in fact for a longer period of time. The costs which do not vary with changing output. Fixed costs might include the cost of building a factory, insurance, legal bill. Even if your output changes or you don't purchase anything, your fixed costs stay the same. So, for example, if you are paying a rent for a factory, even if there is no production in a factory, even if factory is shut down for any reason, but still you have to pay a cost which is fixed in nature. So that kind of cost is can be termed as a fixed cost, because it is fixed for over a period of time. So for say you have to pay rent if you have an agreement for that land, for that factory for 1 year. So no matter whether production is taking place or not, you have to pay a rent over a period of 1 year or 12 months at a fixed amount. So these kind of costs are called fixed costs, which are fixed in nature. Then comes variable cost. So cost which depend on the output produced, that is called a variable cost. So variable cost is directly proportional to output produced. For example, if you produce more cars, you have to use more raw material such as metal. So this is variable cost. It's varying with production. Variable cost always comes into a picture when production activities take place. If there is no production activities, variable costs will not incurred. So while producing good or by producing services, variable cost is incurred. For production of goods, raw material is used, fine. Labor has to pay, and machinery needs a repairment. So those kind of cost varies with the production. If production is very high, variable cost will also be very high. If production cost is low, variable cost also dips down. And if there is complete shutdown in the factory, then variable cost will be nil. So graph of variable cost uh, varies and move along with the production cost. Means that if there is an increase in production, then there will be increase in variable cost. If there is no production or if there is a decrease in production, then variable cost will uh, sync with uh, decrease amount of production done. Fine. Then come semi-variable costs. Labor might be semi-variable cost. If you produce more car, you need to employ more worker. This is variable cost. However, if you don't produce any car, you may still need some worker to look after empty factory. So one is fixed cost, which is fixed over a period of time. Then it's a variable cost, which varies with the production. Then there are semi-variable costs, which are not completely fixed and not even completely variable or flexible. So if there is no production, no raw material need to produce, but still there will be individual who look after your factory or production process. They need to be paid. So those kind of cost is known as semi-variable cost. Coming to nature of cost, it can be a controllable cost. So controllable costs are the costs which can be influenced by the action of a specified number of undertaking. They are incurred in particular responsibility centers, can be influenced by action of executive heading that responsibility center. For example, direct labor costs, direct material costs, direct expenses, controllable by the shop level management. Controllable costs are basically those costs which are under the control of production manager, which are uh, directly involved in the production of goods, but they are still controllable. It can be lower down or it can be increased according to situation. For example, labor cost. If there is a cut in labor, can be cut down. Uh, then a material can be cut down if there is a need of if there is a less need of material, then there will be no material cost or direct expenses. So accordingly, things can be managed. If there is a high production, fine, then more material cost will be used. If there is no production, then material cost will be less. Fine. Or in case of direct labor, so अगर number of less number of labor से अगर काम लिया जा रहा है, ठीक है. Suppose earlier there were 10 labor, now due to some reason there are 5 labor and they are working for 10 labors. So there is a cut of 5 labors. So that can be, so cost is manageable. It's the it can be managed as per the decision of responsibility center and the one who is governing the responsibility center. So these kind of costs are called controllable cost, as the name suggests. It can be controlled. For example, direct material, direct labor, and certain factory overhead costs are controlled by production manager. Another example is the sales manager has a control over the salary or commission of a salesperson. If salesperson is not is performing up to mark, then their salary can be cut, or if they are not meeting that target, then commission or incentive can be cut down. So it can be controlled. Then comes uncontrollable costs. Uncontrollable costs are the costs which cannot be influenced by the action of a specified member of the undertaking. For example, so any cost not which cannot be governed, which cannot be controlled, is known as uncontrollable cost. For example, a foreman in charge of a tool room can only control costs pertaining to the same department and the matter which comes directly under his control, not the costs apportionate to other departments. The expenditure which is controlled by an individual may be uncontrollable by other individuals. So sales department cannot interfere in cost cutting of marketing department. Marketing department cannot interfere in the cost related matter of production department. So those kind of costs are uncontrollable, which is not under the control of any department, which is not under the control of any individual. Fine. These costs are imposed by the top management or allocated to several departments. For example, a company-wide advertising cost that is allocated by the central office to different department is not under the control of department head. Fine. So, uh, suppose if Google is Google, if head of office of the Google decided to spend 10 billions in advertisement, fine, then that kind of cost, that kind of decision is out of control of Google India or Google Sri Lanka or Google uh, Google Bangladesh, because these are regional office, fine, and the decision is taken by the head of the office, fine, by headquarter. So that is not under the control of regional office. So those kind of costs are known as uncontrollable costs. Then coming to budgetary control methods. So budget is a formal statement of financial resources set aside for carrying out specific activities in a given period of time. One thing which need to be keep in mind that budget and aspect related with budgets are always time specific. Then it helps to coordinate the activities of the organization. That is another important aspect of budget, that it helps in coordinating the activities of the organization. So an example would be advertising budget or a sales force budget. Then coming to budgetary control, a control technique whereby actual results are compared with budgets, that is variance analysis. So budgetary control is done by comparing what has been said to achieve and what is actually achieved. Any deviation, any variance is then analyzed, whether it's a positive variance or it's a negative variance. Fine. So any difference variance are made the responsibility of key individual who can either exercise control action or revise the original budget. Then corrective measure is taken. So that is one of the method of budgetary control, that it controls any deviation from the set path, what is already been decided. If there is any deviation, then the corrective measure is taken. And since budgetary control is ongoing monitoring activity, it keep on monitoring each step at a micro and macro level. So timely corrective measure can be taken. Then if we talk about budgetary control and responsibility centers, since budgetary control uh, set up a responsibility center, then so that is another important aspect of controlling. The responsibility center, as we have already discussed, that responsibility centers in responsibility centers uh, work is given to individual, responsibilities are given to individual, and then they are liable, they are responsible, they are answerable, accountable for uh, all kind of action they take. If they are able to achieve what is asked them to be achieved, then they are appreciated. If they fail to achieve, then they have to answer. So a responsibility center can be defined as any functional unit headed by a manager who is responsible for the activities of that unit. So namely, there are three units: cost center, profit center and investment. तो क्या होता है जब रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी सेंटर बनता है, तो जितना जो भी इंडिविजुअल है उसमें एक सेंस ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आ जाती है कि दे आर they have been given some authority, some responsibility, so they are directly answerable to all kind of question asked by top management related to their individual department. Then if we talk about advantages of budgetary control, then budget can be highly useful and functional. Some of the functional benefit of preparing and using budget as a control technique. Uh, Budgetary control control overall working of the organization, and in helps in overall achieving the set target of the organization. Then budget help manager in integrating personal effort within the organization toward a common goal by properly appropriating adequate budget to different activities within the organization. So all the activities can be synchronized and all effort can be coordinated to achieve the organizational objective of the organization. Then budget act as a controlling device to correct any deviation. That is very important aspect of budget, that it help in correcting any deviation, which is very important from the organization point of view in achieving the target and in achieving the desired set desired profit, desired revenue, right? So so if expenditure for activity for a given activity exceed the allotted budget at any point of time, this will signal a deviation from a prescribed course, requiring attention and action by the management. So as soon as any deviation occurred, since it's a continuous monitoring activity, so as soon as any deviation occurred, it set an alarm that corrective measure need to be taken, so that deviation इतना ज़्यादा ना हो जाए that it become unmanageable. Right? Then budget help in the just measurement of performance. Due to quantification of budget, the measurement of performance become more objective in nature, thus eliminating biasness that might be introduced due to subjective evaluation. So this means that since budget is objective in nature, everything is every target, every responsibility, every uh, task is well defined in term of numbers. जो भी टारगेट होते हैं वो नंबर्स में डिफाइन होते हैं, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज नंबर में डिफाइन होती हैं, राइट? सो उनका मेजरमेंट करना इज ऑलवेज इजी, and comparison is again very easy among the individual. So since number give a clear cut picture, so evaluation become an easy task, and this also help in eliminating biasness that might occur, right? Then the budgeting process helps management learn from past experience. The management can critically look at the success or a failure of the past budget and isolate errors and analyze their causes and establish the step to be taken to avoid repetition of such error. So it helps management in from to avoid any mishappening, right? Avoid all kind of wastage, avoid any kind of confusion from on the basis of past experience. Budget पास बजट में जो गलतियां हुई हैं, जो एरर्स अकर हुए हैं ड्यू टू एनी रीजन, जितने ज़्यादा वेरिएंस आए हैं, वो वेरिएंस पास स्टडी के बेसिस में फ्यूचर कोर्स कैन बी करेक्ट. सो so cause and establish analyze their causes and establish a step to be taken to avoid repetition of such error. So past study के basis पे future error जो है वो eliminate करे जा सकते हैं, ठीक है? And repetition of such error can be avoided. Then budgeting process induces the management to shift attention to the future operation. Since budget are a part of planning process, they force manager to anticipate and forecast the trend and changes in the external. Since it's a future operation, so so budget, since budget are part of planning process, budget planning process का part होती है, future को ध्यान में रख के करा जाता है. So it is a helpful tool to achieve future course of objective. Then budget facilitate communication throughout the organization. Budget are the blueprint for companies' plan of operation and can only be coordinated through proper communication at all level. And these budgets are especially helpful to lower level manager who are responsible for implementing the budget in their plan. So proper communication can be built on the basis of budget, and also budget is always good budget, and this is one of the essential of good budget, that it is participative in nature. So जब हर department का participation होता है, so there is no miscommunication among the departments, since there are since different department uh, rely and depend on each other. So when there is a proper communication among the department, so कोई भी miscommunication नहीं होता है, and uh, things are very easy to manage and properly can be properly coordinated on the basis of budgetary control. So, but there are some problem in budgetary control, since budget can be seen as a pressure device imposed by the management, thus resulting in bad labor relationship, inaccurate record keeping. Then there can be departmental conflict arise due to dispute over resource allocation that might happen if there are two departments which are not directly linked with each other. So उनके बीच में there can be dispute over asset allocation or resources allocation, financial resources allocation. Every department thinks that they require more resources than other department. Then department blaming each other if target are not attained. So if any target is not attained, then there is a passing of ball practice. There can be a passing of ball practice by different department, and then it is difficult to reconcile personal, individual, and a corporate goal. If top management have their own personal liking and disliking, if they have their own personal motive to be achieved, then also no matter how effective budgetary control or budget is, uh, it will still fail to achieve the set target. Then waste may arise as manager adopt the view we had better spend it or we will lose it. This is often coupled with empire building in order to enhance the prestige of the department. So in that manner, wastage can be arise. Then responsibility versus controlling. For example, some costs are under the influence of more than one person. Fine, like power costs. So there can be conflict between the responsibility and controlling issue. Then manager may overestimate costs so that they will not be blamed in future should they overspend. So that is done deliberately, sometimes deliberately by the manager. They overestimate cost कि अगर कोई waste होता भी है, that still that come under the limit. Right? So that is all about how budget uh, uh, how budget and budgetary control system work as a planning. How a budget help in maintaining proper coordination, proper help in doing proper and effective planning, and how because of budget a set target can be achieved. Thank you for listening.